One of the questions I receive on a near daily basis is, how do I start out as a music composer? What should I be focused on? How do I get the best results from my music and potentially for my career, and so on? And this is a really good question because it shows that sort of drive, that motivation to want to reach for something further. Maybe you don't just want to put music out there, but you actually want to have an impact in the world, but you want to make sure you have that right foundation, that base to start from. How do we actually know what to do first, second, third? So I want to share with you 3 practical tips that you can take with you to really start growing as a composer and basically start having an impact in your industry. The first thing I would recommend is to just start writing. A lot of composers kind of get hung up on the technology, or they kind of get frazzled by all the opportunities out there, but it really is unnecessary, and it's almost detrimental to think about until you start actually writing and having some sort of output. So getting into the rhythm of writing is a wonderful thing to do because it almost becomes like a muscle that you have to train regularly. If you think about physical fitness, right, the only way we really start to see those results in our body, whether you want to build muscle or lose fat or both, is continued, consistent practice in the regular training. Maybe that's weightlifting, maybe that's doing cardio. All of that stuff can be very helpful, but only over a larger period of time. If you only expect results after like a month, you're not really going to see that and you can give up. But if you think of it in the long term, you know that you're going to see those results in 2-3 years. That's sort of that motivation, that deadline that gives you that drive because you always have that goal to be aiming towards. Likewise, the only way to really get better at composing is simply to just compose more. We shouldn't be focusing on writing the absolute best piece every single time, because I think there's something to writing ideas that you don't like. You kind of discover what you want to discard, what doesn't quite fit your style, and what you actually do enjoy in the future. And that only comes from regular practice, right? You come up with ideas that maybe you don't like originally, but then you do like later, and that sort of crafts your style over time. That kind of builds your unique sound, and you can only discover that by continuing to write more and more on a regular basis. So if you're just starting out, I would recommend writing at least once a week. I think that's a sustainable rhythm. Maybe you give yourself 30 minutes on a Monday, let's say, and keep that regular, right? Like let's say Monday at 10 a.m., I want to dedicate 30 minutes of time to start to write some music. And even if it's not great, or even if you only have like one idea, that's better than absolutely nothing, but get into the routine of writing music regularly so that it becomes something that you can do basically on command whenever you want to do it. The second thing I would recommend is to not overemphasize the perfection of your piece of music. So I would encourage you to publish your music when you're like maybe 80% happy with it, because if you try to over perfect, you try to really control every last detail of your piece of music, it's almost a never-ending cycle, and you will never ever be truly satisfied 100%. The thing is, like the final 10% of a piece of music, most lay people, like audience people who are not musicians, they don't really recognize all the work that's gone into it. They just hear the final result and then they make up their mind on whether they like it or not, right? And so for you as the musician, it's good to put yourself in the mind of your audience as well. What will they interpret my music as, or how will they feel about my music? So once you put yourself into their minds, you get a better idea of how you should be approaching your compositions as well. Don't get hung up on every last detail. Think about the overall scheme of your piece of music, the overall vision, and commit to that. Of course, once you come up with your ideas and you're, let's say, 70-80% happy with them, then please publish them as well. Because you could, again, always sit on those projects and really tweak the final 20-10%, but it's never really gonna be absolutely perfect. So at some point, you just have to suck it up. You have to say, all right, I'm putting this out there. This represents me at this point in time. I'm gonna move on to the next project. And that gives you that mental clarity and just that space that you need to continue developing as a composer and an artist. The final thing I would recommend is to start networking as early as possible. So especially if you want to make this into some sort of career, like you want gigs in film scoring, or you want to, do video game scoring, or if you want to do publishing music, right? Like sync and licensing, stuff like that. You have to know people in the industry in order to get those sorts of opportunities. The only way you can do that is if you continue to write and publish and build a portfolio for yourself. And then we could talk about things like websites and having an online presence and stuff like that. But the first step is to write and publish, but then you want to make sure you start connecting with people who you do want to work with eventually, or simply you just want to get, you want more peers, or you want collaborations, like be open to any opportunity that comes your way, even if it's not a paid one. You're working to grow from the beginning, right? So we can't expect huge results right away, but the best thing you can do is to start connecting with other people in your industry and start taking an interest in what they're doing. Just so you know, every single composing or orchestration gig that I've ever gotten was as a result from my YouTube channel. I continue to put out videos on a weekly basis, sometimes 2 times a week, 3 times a week. And I started this from the end of 2017, and I've been maintaining that rhythm ever since. So every single gig I've gotten was the result of someone coming across one of my videos or listening to one of my tracks on my website, me having that presence, and then they enjoyed what they listened to and they wanted that for their own projects. So then they reached out to me personally. It's something I'm very grateful for, and something I would do all over again if I had to start from scratch. I would definitely be writing, I would be publishing, I would be helping people wherever I could, adding value to other people, and then that eventually comes back to support you in the same way as well. So to quickly recap, the act of writing, like getting into the routine of writing music in general on a consistent basis, is probably the best thing you can do to grow as a composer, because especially if you want to make it work in the future, if you want to get a gig in this field, then getting used to the act of writing on demand is definitely an essential skill. We can't just be waiting for inspiration to strike all the time. And that's something I used to do quite a lot, is because I don't have to write for a living, I basically write for pleasure. I usually wait for inspiration to hit before I start writing, because I want to be super happy, super motivated, and just super proud of every single piece that I write. But I know that if I want to increase my musical output, and if I want more of my music out there in the world, I can't just be relying on inspiration all the time. It just doesn't work that way, because there is no guarantee that inspiration will strike you whenever you want it to. So the best thing you can do is to start writing consistently and commit to a regular writing rhythm. No matter how difficult that might feel in the beginning, once you start getting into it, you get into the work of it, the workflow, it starts to become easier and easier, and you start to jog those creative juices, and that can create some beautiful results in the long run. As you're writing, as you're arranging, you're putting your orchestrations together. Once you get to a certain point where you're happy with it, you don't have to be 100% happy with it, but at a certain point where you feel like, okay, this is sounding really good, I'm enjoying this, that's when I want you to publish your piece of music, put it out there, don't think about it anymore, and move on to the next piece. Again, we're trying not to get hung up on every tiny detail, because that can result in just over tweaking and eventual overwhelm and resentment towards your field, your craft, whatever it might be. So definitely publish at a certain point where you're feeling happy with it, and that will increase your output and just give you more of an online presence, because people can find more of you and your music. And finally, don't hesitate to connect with other people in your niche or industry. Connect with other composers who are doing, the similar things as you are, right? They're writing music. You can start groups together. You can start a mastermind together. You can chat, do video calls. You can do track feedbacks together, right? Anything you want to do to start building that sort of friend group, that sort of connection group, that will really help you in building that sort of network from the very beginning. And then eventually, when people start to know you more, they start to hear more of your work, you'll have other people you can also rely on as well, because you've delivered value first. And so then you can turn to them and ask for something in return. It's commonly known that music is a very people-focused industry. So if I was to work with someone, I usually want to work with someone that I enjoy working with. And for me, that would be the main priority. Of course, their skill has to be good, but if they're very difficult to work with, if they're consistently late, or they're always arrogant and cocky, they think they're better than everyone else, I'm not going to work with that person, because that's just going to make me feel depressed. It's going to make me feel like they're putting themselves on top, right? It's just not a good work environment. So be a great person, be a good people person. And that's very, very true for music, especially any creative field. It's all about those connections. And so definitely feel free to network and build that group, build people and friends that you can trust. Add value first, value will come back to you later. And it's just a cycle that continues to repeat, but you have to take that first step. If any of these 3 points resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Let me know which one stuck with you the most and which one are you going to apply more to your workflow at the moment, right? Because we could always be doing more of these 3, I think. And that's true for myself as well. So I definitely would love to hear from you, your thoughts below. Which one of these 3 points are you going to take more seriously and incorporate into your life and workflow? 2 quick things before you go. If you want that full step-by-step system to go from the initial idea to the polished final master, and you want every single step of the music making process filled in between, then I want to give you free access to my complete Composers Framework workshop. It's an on-demand video training that you can check out anytime. You can register for it using the first link down below, and it's basically a gift just for checking out this video, and I hope it fills in those steps for you. It's really actionable stuff. I've shared it with a lot of my students, and it's really helped them improve their workflow, and I know it can do the same for you as well. If you want me to go a little bit deeper into how you can actually write more music this year, have an actionable step-by-step plan, then definitely check out this video right here. I talk about goal setting, how you can create deadlines that you can actually reach every single time, and all of that stuff is covered super in depth. So I'll see you in that video.